What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 8 of Lessons with Strangers. I'm here with Ashley Williams, who is a mother, a wife, entrepreneur, business owner, the owner of the League HTX, which we'll get into a little bit later, but she actually has some cool franchising opportunities that are happening. She's also the owner of Bird Williams Consulting.
That's right.
Where she helps with like business strategy, creative solutions, things that help you grow your business. She's also the host of Bird Means Business podcast, which she's on pause right now on that. But there's 100 episodes of golden nuggets where she goes into business strategy, entrepreneurship, finding your money team, advice for graphic designers, photographers, tons of valuable content on there. So it's a great place, great resource. Definitely check out Ashley's podcast.
It's fun times.
Yeah.
I love kind of pouring out all the years of experience that I have from being an entrepreneur. So check it out.
And before we get into it, what I did want you to talk to us a little bit about is what you have going on with your franchising event coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I own the League. It's a gym here in Houston, Texas. It's a warehouse gym. My husband Terry and I launched it back in 2013. And we love what we get to do. It's more than just a gym. It's a fitness community, a fitness family. For over the years, we've grown it. And now we're at the point of franchising it to where we want to offer the League in other communities around Houston, but really the nation, the world. So we're excited about expanding our footprint. So March 26th, we're gonna have a franchise open house. And this is where we open up the doors to the League, invite you in, tour you through the space, talk about franchising opportunities, what it looks like, the process, all of that. And we also have the virtual option too. So if you're not here in Houston or you're not able to join live, you can actually join through Zoom. So it's gonna be March 26th. You can go to packtraining.com/franchise to get all the information.
Cool. And yeah, I mean, they should definitely do that because the League is awesome. I've trained at the League. It's unlike any other gym. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out. And we'll get into a little bit more of that later on in the podcast. Yeah, let's get into a little bit. I love telling or hearing stories about entrepreneurship, how people's lives work, how they got to where they are, and I think your story would be great to share. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So Justin, I was working on Wall Street in New York City. I loved it in a way. I love the hustle and bustle of New York City. It's my favorite city in the world. I loved the, hustle of my job, working on a trade floor, doing deals. I worked in IPOs, a lot of equity transactions, and all of that, I just wasn't fulfilled. Meaning I would look at what I was doing and I was trying to find more meaning in it and I just couldn't. I was like, well, if I do an IPO, it's helping create more jobs, kind of. No, it wasn't enough for me to be working all these hours. I was losing my hair, I was getting sick. It's a really intense job, as you can imagine. And I'd also look at my directors and people ahead of me and say do I really want to be like them? Do I really want their life or their job? And the answer was no. But I had no clue what I wanted to do. And I just kind of went through this process, which I share on the podcast about what is it that I would do if money wasn't an issue? What are people always asking me for help with? What do I just find myself engulfed in and hours have passed and I'm still working, And it came to I want to run a business. I want to do all the logistics and strategy and planning, but I didn't have a business, like a hair salon or a restaurant. I didn't know what it would be. Fast forward to me getting back with my ex-boyfriend, Terry was my ex-boyfriend at the time. We'd broken up. Thank God that worked out. We were getting back together and getting married. I moved back to Houston and he wanted to have a gym. And he was crushing it in the Houston fitness game. And I was like, we should just do it now. He was thinking 5-10 years down the road. I was like, oh no, we should do it now. I didn't have a job. I was trying to figure things out with entrepreneurship. And I built a business model. I was like, what is gonna come in? What is going to go out? Where does profit lie? And I looked at month over month for a year and then annually for 3 years and said, okay, I think we can do this. This is how much we need to raise from investors because we can't fully bootstrap it. We were able to kind of answer all those questions when we looked at those financial projections, which is why I talked so much about how important they are. And I think it helped convince Terry, okay, this is actually doable. And it took us about a year from first business planning stages to opening the doors. It was crazy. We were, working with investors. One guy was like, put me down for 10K. And then like when it came down time to actually ask him for the check, it was like crickets, right? So then we're like, oh crap, like we got to figure out something else, right? So we're like going through all these challenges with getting the turf off the truck. It was like 1,000 pounds and we didn't realize it. Like, getting the equipment up, like all of those things. But it was all worth it because, man, when we opened those doors and began to create the space we wanted to do gyms a little bit differently, based on what Terry had seen, and started to kind of see the life change. That's what I love so much about the league. It's like, we get these stories of I'm off my blood pressure medication now, or man, you saved my marriage because now I finally feel sexy again. I didn't feel that way before coming to the league. Or even one girl said this and it really just hit me so hard. She was like, I was in an abusive relationship and the league was the only place where I felt strong, where I felt like I was strong. And so I would come here to just feel strong, but then I got strong enough to leave that toxic relationship. And so she ended up leaving this guy and now she's thriving. Like, that is what I was looking for when I was in New York. That is what I wanted, something fulfilling and meaningful. And so it's just been such an honor. So we grew the league. It grew really quickly. We had 2 locations for a while. It's just been an amazing story, an amazing journey. We decided in 2020 to take it to the next level of franchising. And now I kind of feel like we are back in the beginning stages of like figuring it out. Like, full disclosure, I'm a very real person, very transparent, maybe too transparent sometimes, but we're back in those stages where it's like, we're figuring it out day by day. We're learning as we go. We have a consultant who's helping us. We have learned how important it is to have a team around us, thank God. But we're figuring it out, but by the grace of God, it'll also thrive. So we're excited.
That's so cool. Like, going and finding something that's fulfilling, right? Finding something that, and the fact that you have that with the league, all the stories that come back and people say different things, like that is what is like feels the best. The same thing, like if I deliver a video or something like that, seeing the impact it can have on somebody's business, like that is super, super fulfilling.
Absolutely.
So I love like those stories and how the things that we can do can impact and help. So that's so cool.
I think we all have gifts, right? We all have something special about us. There's something that we can do in a unique way to help people. And even you talking about video, it's like, it's great for a business to be awesome, but if a business is not able to translate that in media, then it's not going to get anywhere. It's going to fall flat. So like, how cool is it that you have an eye, you have a system, a process that you can come to a business owner who's freaking out about media and video, and you can say, it's okay, I got you. What is the story you want to communicate? How about this? Here's some ideas. Like, you can take a business to a whole nother level. And so I just encourage people listening, like, think about what it is that you have that's special. And think about it in terms of how it can help other people. The service nature, I think, is really what helps it sustain. A lot of people get into business because they're like, I want to make a lot of money, or I want to be an influencer, I want to be #CEO, #boss, and it's like, that's not going to sustain you. The money might not always look the way you think it's going to look, especially in the beginning. Like, what's really going to sustain you is doing something for other people and changing lives. And so think about your purpose in that way. Your
purpose and like your why, like rooting it in that. 'Cause if you have strong roots, right, then you're good. So if we talked about that, like, was that the why behind the league? Like those stories, was that from the beginning? I'm sure you expected that to an extent, or that was purpose driven, right?
Absolutely. So one of our whys is that we wanted people to feel seen when they come to the gym. We wanted people to feel accepted. A lot of people go to the gym and they feel like they're in competition with people around them. They feel like embarrassed, maybe if they're further along in their fitness journey or whatever, or I should say not as far along in their fitness journey, and we didn't want any of that. We wanted to pull down all those barriers and make people feel seen. So that was really our why. Like, it being more of a lifestyle than like, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to look like this. Like, really fitness and wellness as a lifestyle and that holistic approach. So it's been really cool to kind of see that manifest itself in the league and how it's served the community here.
Sweet. And I know you have a podcast episode where you dig deeper into like your why, finding like your purpose, right?
Yes.
So we can link that. I'm not sure. Do you remember what number exactly?
I don't remember which number.
There's 100 episodes. Okay, it's gonna
There's a lot, but I can find
to,
a few.
Yeah.
We talk about the league's journey with my husband on one episode. I talk about my transition from corporate America into entrepreneurship as well. But yeah, I'll get you those links for sure.
Cool. Yeah, so just like to segue it a little bit, we know like you're constantly doing things, right? You're busy, you have a bunch of different projects that you're working on, franchising right now. You just had a new baby recently,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
She's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So all the different projects you have going on, right? How do you balance like family life, doing all these different projects? I know you're very ambitious, so
Yes.
how do you balance all that?
Ooh, that is a great question. And for me, it's much less of balance in my head, because balance to me communicates like kind of perfect, right? Whereas it's more of a rhythm. It's more of like a dance, right? It's more of like sometimes I'm gonna be more in mommy zone, sometimes I'm more in business zone, and it's not always perfect. I can tend to be an extreme person, right? Terry, my husband, has helped me more with this rhythmic lifestyle, right? So I heard this once where it's like juggling balls, right? You juggling all these different balls. How do you keep it all up? It's really identifying that some of these balls are plastic balls and some are glass balls. So there are some balls that cannot be dropped or else they'll shatter and it'll be a disaster. And those you have to identify in both personal and business. So I have to understand that in my personal life, going to pick up the kids, which is really important to me and fun for me, that's really a plastic ball, picking them up from school, right? It's not that important, right? It's at the end of the day, it's not gonna shatter something. Whereas maybe attending a game or really connecting with them, having a moment with my phone away in the evening to really connect one-on-one with one of my 3 children, that's more of a glass ball. That has to happen, right? And then in the same in business. And so that's kind of how I see it. I have to understand that I will drop balls sometimes, but let's just make sure it's the plastic balls and understand that there are glass balls in business. There are some things that I'm gonna have to do, which means I might have to drop a plastic ball in family life. Does that make sense?
That makes
It's
sense.
just this idea that you can't do it all, right? People ask me, how do you do it all? Like, I don't, There are some times where there are balls dropped, right? Also, I have a village, I have a community, I don't do it alone. I am blessed to be married to a husband who is very hands-on and involved, as should be the norm, right? Again, it's not a 50-50 thing. You don't need to make it 50-50, but he's just as involved as I am in parenting, so that helps a lot. Also, our family helps a lot. My mother, my aunt, his mom, they help so much I don't know how we would do any of this without all of them. And then the last thing I'll say is just systems. So systems will save you. I don't know if you've heard me say that, but I say it a lot. Like, you have to get systematic with your life. And that's my nature. For Terry, not so much. He kind of is more, I don't want to say creative, I'm creative too, but he can feel like chained down by a system. But he's learned to grow into it because it helps this whole ship roll, right? It helps this all work. Meaning like down to our groceries, right? So before it would be like, oh, he went to the grocery store, man, we forgot all this stuff. I meant to tell you I wanted this, and that. So now we have a shared note on our phone that we add to over the week. We also have a joint calendar where we can both see what's in the calendar. And on Thursdays, it's like, or Fridays, whatever it is, it's groceries every week. So we know that's the day that we get groceries. And by Friday, I have to have everything I need in the list. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like a simple system that you can create, but it saves arguments, it saves time, it saves all the back and forth. And so those are the kinds of systems in both our personal life and in business that make all of this happen.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I love the analogy of juggling things.
Yeah.
Like something's gonna have to fall, and that's okay. It's like, but prioritizing what can and what can't.
Yes.
And then when a plastic ball does drop, it's like, okay, well, you can't be hard on yourself that fell and that hit the ground. It's like, that's okay. But if a glass ball falls, okay, we got a little bit of a problem here.
Exactly. 1,000%.
That's so good. I like that. And just like the systems. I think about that as like, it helps me with budgeting. Like I use mint.com for like budgeting.
Yes.
And so that really helps me like having a system in place of like, okay, this is what I'm gonna spend on groceries.
Exactly.
This is what I'm gonna spend on internet. And planning it. Actually today, March 1st, I need to go sit down and get my budget in order by tonight.
Yep.
but systems, like I love that too.
Yeah.
Getting everything in order, it just helps so much, like knowing exactly what you have to do.
Yeah.
I need to get better with that, I'll be honest. I'm a creative person, so I don't really like time block. I know people talk about like time blocking and things like that. I don't do that. But I have like in the morning I'll wake up and I write down a list of things that I know that I need to tackle for the day.
And see, that's a system. I think a lot of times we hear these gurus say, like, it has to be like this. You have to have this crazy morning routine and wake up at 4 a.m. Like, that doesn't work for everybody. So a system is just figuring out what works best for you such that you can get things done and be efficient and move things forward. And to the extent that you can automate a system is even better, right? Like if your budget, if you could automate it to where it like pings you when you're at, 80% of your grocery budget during the month or something, because then you're like, ooh, I need to make sure I stay under. You don't have to necessarily go check and see. It just automatically gives you those notifications. Those kinds of things help enforce the system. But I feel like you have great systems. I mean, from what you've, shared with me, don't think that it has to look one certain kind of way.
I'm getting there. Yeah. But while we're like on the topic of finance, right? Kind of like since we're on that, when it comes to like your finances, right? So you and Terry, y'all both own a business, right? You have separate businesses. So I'm always curious because like Jenny and I, so Jenny's my girlfriend. She does real estate, so she has her own business.
Okay, cool.
And then I have Delphi Media, so that's my own business, right? And so we've talked about finances before, but going into it, we're like, okay, well, how are we gonna, because she's gonna have income coming into her business account, I'm gonna have income coming into my business account, and then we're gonna have a personal joint account at some point, but do we have like set salaries that go into there? Like, what have you and Terry found have been like a system that's worked, the systems, like what has been something that's worked or have, any insight on that?
This is a wonderful question. So first, I think it's good to point out that you definitely want to keep business and personal separate, right? I just mentioned that because I have a lot of clients who come to me and that's not the case. So if you have a business, there's something, well, I'll just say like you don't want to pierce the corporate veil is what it's called. Meaning you say you have this LLC that's set up, right? And you say that it's separate from you for liability purposes because you don't want, if someone's injured by your business or harmed by your business, for them to come after you personally, right? So you have this LLC that you set up to separate yourself, but then everything's commingled in terms of your finances. Well, a judge would say it's actually not, you're not actually effectuating your LLC. It's like a paper LLC versus a performing LLC, which I talk about. I think it's episode 51 with Saludo, Uba.
I listened to that one and I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I pierced the corporate veil.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay. A lot of us do. We certainly didn't understand all of this in the very beginning, but it's something that it's okay if you mess up on, but you want to get right. So first of all, you just want to keep everything separate, meaning just a separate business bank account. And it could be as easy as a transfer or a check you write to yourself when you do pay yourself, but make sure that it's business money that comes in are covering expenses for the business. If you go eat with a friend and call it a business expense, but you want to just make sure that it's all legit, right? Okay, so there's that. Now, when it comes to how we do like our personal finances, basically all of our different income, so we have multiple different income streams, right? All of that income, and that's income, not the business income, but like our salaries, which I can talk about a little bit in a second. So let's just say we get paid $20,000 a year from the league. Break that up into whatever the biannual, because we are on salary now, which we'll talk about payroll in a second. But that money comes into a joint account. Money from the league, money from Bird Williams, money from Terry the Trainer brand, money from, he works at Lakewood. All of that comes into one joint account. This is our money that we make, our income, our personal income. Now, what we do is all of the joint family expenses come out of that same account. So our mortgage, our phone bill, internet, all like light bill, all that stuff comes out of the joint. But what we also do is pay ourselves separately. It's called a personal account. And Ashley has a personal account and Terry has a personal account. Let's just say that's $500 a month, $300 a month. So from the joint account, we each get paid that each month for our personal expenses like coffee and I want to get a purse, and Terry wants to like get a million random things on Instagram. He goes like, he's the guy that goes to the Instagram ads and actually gets the stuff. He's like, look at this cool new gadget. Terry has so many cool new gadgets, and it used to bother the heck out of me until we had the system. This is why we created it, because now he's free to get whatever he wants with his $500, $300 a month, right? And I am the same. We can't, judge each other. We can't say anything about it. It's just like, be free. And I think this is important because a lot of people, when it comes to marriage, they're afraid of feeling shackled down, of feeling like I can't do what I want. I don't have freedom anymore. It's like, you can within limits and within boundaries. So we have those separate accounts, those personal accounts where we can do kind of whatever we want with, okay? Now back to payroll. So payroll is an interesting thing. There's a few ways that you can pay yourself as a business owner. One is like an equity distribution, where basically you just take money from the business to yourself. There are ways that you want to talk about with your CPA as to how you can do this based on your personal situation. So I just want to put out that disclaimer. But you can write a check to yourself or just do a transfer from the business account to your personal account, right? That's one way to pay yourself from your business. And again, there are like asterisks there, right? Another way is to actually be on payroll like you would with a company, right? And when your business is at a certain point where they can sustain a payroll, it's something to consider as an S corp, filing as an S corp for tax purposes. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty. I don't know, where your listenership is. I could go in, but I mean, it saved us tens of thousands of dollars when we were an S corp for tax purposes because we weren't being double taxed anymore. And so we're on payroll, like W-2 with the league, and we get paid just like our other employees do every 2 weeks. So those are kind of two ways to think about paying yourself. And you have to make sure that it's like a reasonable salary, whatever that is that you're paying yourself. You can't be like, I'm gonna pay myself like $10,000 a year or something if that's not really reflective of what you actually do in the business. It has to be reasonable in case you were to get audited by the IRS. But that is another way to pay yourself. And they each have different implications. Equity distributions are not being taxed. So you have to make sure that you set aside taxes when it's tax time. It also affects your balance sheet. So that's why I said there's some asterisk there, but those are two ways to pay yourself. So you would just kind of decide what makes sense based on the stage of business you're in, like her real estate, your photography and videography, like what can it actually sustain? Also, what do you actually need? Look at all of that and come up with, okay, this is how much we'll pay ourselves, whether it's, the equity distribution route or the actual payroll route. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Gotcha. So it's coming up with like that set amount of monthly income that's going to work, and then whatever is left over is used to fund the business. And then basically, if you need more money saved, then you can pull more, I guess, as an equity distribution, or give yourself more money every 2 weeks.
Exactly.
You get a payment.
That's exactly right.
That's good.
That's exactly right. And there's so many ways to like lower your tax liability. I don't, again, want to go in. It is kind of tax time, so maybe it's helpful. But one, I'll just be honest. We started getting these crazy tax bills. Like, year one, it was like we launched in December strategically because that means that you have more expenses than you do profit, more expenses than you do revenue. So our profit was actually negative, and that was intentional because then you don't have to pay anything in terms of your taxes, right? But then the business grew rapidly. We were like 6 figures in revenue the next year, like 2014. Then we were 6 figures in profit the next year. So it was like, oh, and so those tax bills were hitting. And this was like, we went through 4 accountants, CPAs, before we got to Albie, who's our accountant now. It was a hot mess. We didn't know certain things. They weren't categorizing things right, all these penalties. And it was a lot. And that S Corp designation helped significantly. Also, I can't think of the term, but paying taxes ahead of time. It's just slipping my mind right now, but you can like pay your taxes ahead of time so that like quarterly, so that you're not having to deal with it. Duh. Yeah. But we didn't know. Anyway, so you want to think about all of that as well. But it's a big one. It's something that can really be a game changer in your business. And everyone's at different stages. If you find that you have a lot of extra cash, like a lot of extra profit, you want to be strategic about how to lower that, because otherwise you're going to pay it to the IRS at the end of the year. Yeah. Meaning, and it depends on the business, maybe you buy some more equipment before the end of the year. Maybe you set up a retirement of savings, because you can put a certain amount of money a year into a retirement account so that that's not being taxed, right? Like you can get really strategic with your CPA or even a financial planner. We have both to make sure that you lower that tax liability, so you're just giving the money to the IRS. It's like you're going to either give it to them, or you can like buy some equipment, or you give it to them, or save for your retirement. So think about it.
Like a SEP or a Roth or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool.
So you want to think strategically about that for sure.
Yeah. That's what I've actually messed up with that in my taxes in 2021. I'm doing better in 2022 because now I'm like, okay, I have a financial planner, and he's like, okay, you need to actually, April, we're going to pay your taxes, but we're also going to pay your quarterly taxes. And so we're going to set things up so that, systems are in place, because without the systems in place, it's like, okay, April comes around, and you're like, wait, I owe this much in taxes?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, but that's the benefits. Like, the benefits of owning a business, but also it's like, okay, you have to have these things in place, because your money isn't taxed, up front, but then you got to pay it on the back end.
A lot of folks get into business because they enjoy doing their craft. Terry, he wanted to be a trainer. You wanted to do videography and photography. They don't understand the business sides of things, right? And so that's why Terry was like, he felt fear around launching his business, because he's like, I don't know Excel spreadsheets and strategy and marketing and all this stuff. Like, I want to be a trainer and like help people, And so I feel like a lot of business owners are like that, and that's why it's so important to like not feel the need to know everything and to get help, Like, hire a CPA, hire an attorney. For sure. Hire a financial planner if you can. Hire a business strategist or a consultant that can help you. Like, get educated on the business sides of things, because, otherwise you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to waste a lot of time, energy, right? Money, when you don't have to. And there's so many things that are set up for businesses to thrive, like even when it comes to taxes and stuff. And so take advantage of that, right? You don't want to be having this whole business and not actually taking advantage of it, right?
Going back to kind of like what I said, I messed up this year with my taxes, but thankfully, like, I have a financial planner in place, and like that's helped getting systems in place and stuff like that. And of course, I've like failed multiple times throughout the business. It's happened, right? There's things that we mess up on and we learn from. And it's just the importance of like, okay, if you mess up, you figure it out. And that's what like business is all about. Like, there's no clear roadmap, right? There's no clear path, and like that's what makes it fun. It's like a little bit of a challenge. It's like figuring out the puzzle, figuring out the maze, walking through the maze, and it's like, people always say like blazing trails, right? Trying to figure out a way that you can blaze a trail. But it is cool now that there's a lot of people who've gone before us and have done things, and especially it being like the first day of Women's Month, like it's cool to have you here on the first day. There's a lot of female entrepreneurs who are crushing the game now, so it gives everybody like a cool, it's good when you have like a roadmap of something to look at and be like, okay, this is a good example of something that I can do, because I feel like that's what holds a lot of people back. It's like, if you don't have a clear indicator of somebody or something somebody that's done something right before you of what you're trying to accomplish, it makes it a lot harder, because it's like you have no frame of reference. But if there's somebody that's done it before, you can follow and be like, okay, this is what they did, this is what they learned, this is how they messed up, this is how we can grow and learn and follow from their path and do it our own way, but take wisdom and advice from them.
I could not agree more. It's like, there was this term when I was in banking that's like, don't reinvent the wheel. Like learn from the other people. You don't have to learn everything by failing in your own experience. You can actually look at people around you who've done it and say, oh, these are the mistakes they made, And again, I love that you said you might not do it exactly how they do it, because you shouldn't. You should add your own secret sauce. You should say, I like that they were trying to get to that goal, but the way they got there doesn't really resonate with me. It doesn't really align with who I am or my values. I might do it a little bit differently, but you have some kind of guide as opposed to just being out here just randomly doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think that's important.
So then when it comes to like mistakes that you've made, right, in your business, personal life, and things like that, what are some things or failures that you face and then you learn from? Could you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So One of the biggest that comes to mind is developing a team. So when we launched the league, it was Terry. He worked he was teaching every single class. I was at the front desk for every single shift. And I used to be a control freak. I used to want to control everything, and I want everything to be right. I'm an Enneagram 1, if you know the Enneagram.
Yeah.
And so I liked that because it was safe and I could make sure everything was done right and people were greeted the right way and all this. But then we started to grow rapidly. And so I was really needing to focus more on high level things than, being at the front desk. And we needed to hire. We also needed to hire more instructors because Terry can't teach 1 million classes a day, every day, forever, right? So we had to hire, and it took us longer than it should have. That is one of my biggest lessons learned. I wish I would have thought proactively about hiring before I needed to hire, before we were struggling and desperate and needing it so bad, right? I wish when in our business plan, we would have thought about, okay, once we get to this amount of revenue or this amount of profit, we're going to bring on someone to do X, Y, and Z, and been strategic about that. It would have helped us be more focused with how we were spending our money, but it also would have alleviated so much from us. It's really important in business that you focus on your core competencies. While I might be good at QuickBooks, I enjoyed QuickBooks in the beginning. I'm a nerd, right? I have a finance background, so I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna download the transactions and put them in the categories and add them to Excel. It was a cute little process.
Chart of accounts.
Exactly. I was excited about it, but it was only for so long. Does that make sense? I can't be doing our QuickBooks forever, right? And I really should be thinking about strategy and partnerships and brand, growing the brand, and not about doing the QuickBooks. So at some point, had to let that go. So what I wish I would have known is to let that go sooner than I did. It took us I think a year for our first hire, and even longer. When I finally got to Albie, he does our bookkeeping now. It was I was 9 months behind. You know how you say you do your budgeting on the first of every month? That's how it was. It was actually Fridays. Every Friday, I would reconcile all of our transactions and keep our budget up to date. And then it just got crazy and way behind. And when I got to him, it was 9 months behind. And so he graciously fixed it all, and all of that. But man, I needed to do that way before. Don't let it get to that stage, before you actually take the leap. And it's scary, right? Because I was able to control things when it was me. Now I have to hire. Now I have to figure out the hiring process and training and onboarding. But again, there are people like me who've gone before you. I know I have a 2-part hiring series on the podcast, how to hire and what to do after the hire to really keep good talent in your business. But you got to do it, right? If you really want to grow your brand, you can only be a solopreneur for so long before you're actually going to limit the, potential of your business. So think about that. I think it's important.
That's good. That's good. What if people on the other end are like, well, I feel like a lot of people are like, what if I can't, the expense, I want to maximize income. How do you get past that mental barrier of that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You can think, okay, if I'm gonna spend money paying these other people, I could be using that money to either put back into the business or take myself. Well, what I would say is flip it to the other way, which is well, are you limiting the business's potential or even your own potential trying to do it all yourself? It's just not going to serve you well long term. It kind of also goes back to what are you trying to do in your business? Are you trying to just have something small and just you? Then that's one thing. It depends on your goals. But if you really want to have an agency, I train my students in my Prove It Plan course to think of their business in phases, right? So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and to think of your wildest dreams. When you look at your vision for your business, that's in some phase down in the future. If you really want to get there, what is it going to take to get there? It's not going to be you doing all the things then. So at what point, it might not be right now, right? It might not be phase 1. It certainly wasn't for us, but at some point that you can justify, right? Again, because you've done your financial projections to see, okay, in March of 2023, I'll have profit and sustained profit based on the revenue and expenses that I'm looking at to hire someone on comfortably, right? What does it look like if I really crank up my marketing, work a lot harder and get that to be even sooner to where maybe by the end of the year I can do that or what have you? You can't really answer those questions well until you've done those financial projections and kind of look at it. But I would urge that person to lean into it and ask yourself, is it really that I'm afraid of that, or am I afraid of other things? What am I really afraid of, right? Because there's a whole lot when it comes to trusting your business with someone else in terms of risk, but there's also a lot of reward to it as well.
If you think about a football team, right? You can't be the quarterback and the receiver and the lineman.
Yes.
You can't play all these positions if you want to have like a Super Bowl winning
Absolutely.
team, right?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of different people that have to be in the right places, or else, I mean, come on, you can't do everything by yourself.
1,000%.
At some point, you gotta expand and have team members and things like that. You can't be the quarterback throwing yourself the ball,
right?
Also the kicker,
exactly.
Do it all.
And think about it: if the quarterback's trying to do all of that, he can't be a really great quarterback.
Yeah.
So like, what is it that you bring uniquely to your business? That's what you should focus on. You're talented with videography and photography, not with all the other administrative things or whatever it might be. So the more time you have to focus on your actual craft and what you're good at, the better. For Terry to be in his lane of just focusing on programming our workouts, training people, bringing like all his, he's had such a great vibe and all that, that's where I want him to be. Not, doing stuff that we could hire other people to do, right? Because it's going to really grow our brand to do that. So that's a great analogy. I love that you brought that up.
So when it comes to like franchising, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. The league is expanded into franchising. You'll have franchising opportunities. How did that come about? When did you know it was ready? What stemmed that? Like, how did that come about?
This is a great question, and I actually just decided to share something that we haven't actually really publicly shared. I know Terry would be okay with it, but so we launched the league in December of 2013. December 2014, January, so literally 1 month after we launched, we were in a LYA service at Lakewood, and we were sitting there on the front row, and John Gray was speaking, and he actually prophesied to us that we were going to have locations all over the nation. And he goes on and on talking about how we're going to finance the kingdom of God and how we are going to be independently wealthy. Money, we won't work for money, money will work for us. We actually still have the video. So this is the thing. This was a month after we launched the league. So as you can imagine, we were grateful. We received the prophecy, but it was like, we just launched this thing a month ago. Like, we're just trying to survive. Like, we're just trying to make it, right? And so, we tucked it in our hearts, we prayed, we received it, but I'll be honest, I forgot about it. So fast forward, 2014 blows up, 2015 we have 2 locations, it just keeps growing, and 2020 is when we're really trying to think, we're in the middle of the pandemic, a lot's going on, we're thinking like, what do we want to do? What are the next steps with the league? And long story short, we got a random email from a guy on the Northeast that was like, a guy I work with, like a franchise consultant, identified your business as one that would do well with franchising. Would you want to talk with him? And we were like, we're not considering franchising. Over the years, people would reach out to us, Denver, Chicago, Atlanta, even Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, like wanting to have league locations there. And we were always just like, no, we want to be able to protect the brand. Like, we don't know anything about franchising. Well, in this moment, 2020, we're like, okay, we'll actually consider. We get on the phone with this franchise consultant. And I remember getting off and looking at Terry and being like, that's just odd. Like, this is like so random. Like, we get these spam emails all the time. Like, it just was interesting. Later that day, he texted me the video of John Gray saying the prophecy that I'd forgotten about, that I don't know if he'd forgotten about it. I guess God brought it to his, memory, and we remember the prophecy. And so it's been very much so like okay, here we go, let's do this. So that's really what spurred all of this. We begin the process of figuring out what that really looks like, establishing an LLC for it, understanding the whole, like we had to get a FDD, a franchise due diligence document, which is like 200 and something pages long, and figuring out literally us sitting next to each other on the couch, reading through all of that and understanding it, and, going through the whole process. So that took about a year, and then we announced the franchise opportunities last October, so October of 2021, and here we are. So I share that because, it really is a God dream. Like, it wasn't a part of our business plan. It wasn't on the forefront of our minds. It was just that reminder in the 7th year of the league that, like, oh yeah, we're supposed to franchise this thing, and I guess the time is now. It feels vulnerable. Like I said, it's like we're going back to the beginning of like, okay, this is new, figuring things out, not having all the answers, making mistakes, but we know God's faithful, and we know that if He's called us to it, that He'll complete it in us and through us. And our whole thing is like, if God asked us tomorrow to go to Zimbabwe and like build, like, absolutely. At least I would probably be more excited about that than Terry, but we're down for the cause if we know it's God. And I mean, we've asked ourselves that, like, God, are you sure this is you, right? And it's like, yep, for sure. And so we're kind of just walking it out and 1000% trusting God to, be everything we need in completing it. So we're excited.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
You get the sneak peek exclusive because we've not really actually shared that at all publicly.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that for y'all. I know God is gonna like do great things for y'all and for the business. And it's like you're saying, it's like if God places it in your heart, like He's gonna have it come to pass. Yeah. And so I believe that for y'all. And I'm, whatever I can do to help, like I'm always here to do whatever I can do to help. Because I mean, the league is awesome. Yeah. It's such a great gym. It's a great environment. It's unique. Yeah. It's different than any other gym. You have your specific style of training, which is so awesome. I trained there for a little while, and the community is great. The workouts are great. The vibes, the music. It's such a dope spot.
Thank you.
I mean, I'd love to see it, and I know we will see locations everywhere. Chicago, Denver, wherever, California.
We're excited.
They're going to be popping up everywhere. So that's so dope.
Thank you for saying that. Cool. Yeah, I mean, we get emails all the time. One guy from Denver was just like, a long email, like, do you know of anything like this in the league, or anything like this in Denver? This was before we announced the franchise. He's just like, I've looked everywhere. There's like not a gym like this anywhere else. And we have people who lived in New York who would come here. It was a consultant. He'd fly into Houston all the time, and he's like, I'm a member here just because this is my favorite place to work out. He lives in New York City, so we know it's special and unique. And that's all credit to God. Like obviously a lot of our hard work too, but we always saw it as like a mission field. And like, if this is where you have us planted and what you want us to do and the dream you put in our heart, like show us, God, how we can glorify you through it. And so all glory to God.
Yeah, love that. I love that. To wrap things up, the last thing that I like to ask people is, if everybody could only watch this one part of the video, like if they skipped and there was only this part, like what is one piece of advice that you'd like to share, that you'd like to leave somebody with, that you've learned over your journey, something to leave the people with?
Oh, yeah. I think I'd say to do it afraid. I know that that's kind of cliche. We've heard it a lot. I know I first heard Pastor Nick say it, and it really stuck with me. I think a lot of times we see people doing things that we aspire to do, and we want that so bad, and it looks so effortless, but I think we don't realize that they're afraid too, and that they've had to push through a lot of fear to get to where they are, and they'll have to continue to push through a lot of fear to get to where they want to be. It's like there's levels to this, right? It's like the Bible says, I'll take you from glory to glory and strength to strength. That sounds awesome. Take me from glory to glory and strength. Make me stronger. But really it's like, yeah, that's more and more levels of fear, of hard, that you'll have to master. And, it's like, do it afraid. Like whatever it is in your heart, it's not you're never gonna, sometimes people are like, I'm waiting for peace. And believe me, I'm all about following peace. Like, don't move forward without peace. But peace isn't an absence of fear, right? Peace isn't like, I feel like everything is perfectly lined up. Now is the perfect time to go. I'm not afraid. I feel super confident. No, not at all. Look at stories in the Bible, right? Gideon was like, what? Send me another side. What? So doing it afraid, I think, is huge. And then also, I'll just say one more thing is like, success is in the process, right? So success is not, like we think the success is getting the house, launching, having a successful business, whatever it is, the marathon, running the marathon, that feels like success. And I can see how it does, but really success is in the process. The marathon runner, if they just went from 0 to marathon day to run and they ran the marathon, they would kill themselves, right? They would be very injured, messed up. Because the success is in the process. It's the small miles that they start. It's the training. It's the eating better. It's the being their physique. All of that. That's what's actually giving them the success. When it comes to business, you think like the $1 million in revenue. Well, if you went from today to $1 million in revenue, I promise you would not sustain it. You would not have that $1 million in a year because you would not know how to manage it. You would not know how to delegate. You would not know how to work through hard things. You would not know how to negotiate. That's what you're learning in the process. So like value the process, value that, because people discount it. People are frustrated through it. People think that they're not winning. They think that they're not reaching success, but you actually are. It's actually what you're learning when you're working the job that you don't love so much, or when you're having to clean toilet, whatever it is. That's giving you character, and that's going to sustain you when you get to the level of success you so desire. You don't want to get that money. You don't want to get that success and then have it all fall underneath you because you don't have what it takes to sustain it. The character, the knowledge, the education, the experience to sustain it, that's what you're learning in the process, and that is the true success.
That is so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yay!
Heck yeah. So that is it for episode 8 of Lessons with Strangers. Do you want to share a little bit of your social medias, your contact, where people can find you?
So the league is the League HTX. We're also packtraining.com. And then for business strategy, I'm birdwilliams.com is the website, and it's Hey Bird Williams on Instagram.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on episode 8 of Lessons with Strangers. We love you guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. See ya.
Bye.